Buenas tardes. Os damos la bienvenida a este encuentro telemático sobre la Ley Europea del Clima, con su ponente en el Parlamento Europeo, la señora Jytte Guteland, del Grupo Socialdemócrata, eurodiputada de Suecia, a quien quiero agradecer que aceptase la invitación de la Oficina del Parlamento Europeo en Barcelona. Antes de continuar, querría recordar a la audiencia que contamos con interpretación simultánea castellano-inglés y que para activarlo hay que ir a la barra inferior en la aplicación Zoom. Hay un globo de interpretación, se puede seleccionar español o inglés y además se puede silenciar el audio original para que no haya un doble sonido. La principal preocupación de la opinión pública europea antes de que desatase la actual crisis sanitaria, la más transversal, la más intergeneracional, la que genera más consenso, es el cambio climático. Y es por ello que esta Ley Europea del Clima, que busca reducir al 60% las emisiones para el 2030 frente al 40% actualmente en vigor y la neutralidad climática para el 2050, será uno de los pilares legislativos de esta legislatura. Eurodiputada desde el año 2014, esta es su segunda legislatura, Jytte Guteland es miembro de la Comisión de Medio Ambiente, Salud Pública y Seguridad Alimentaria del Parlamento Europeo y, como os comentaba al inicio, es la ponente de esta ley. En una primera intervención, la señora Guteland nos abordará los detalles de la Ley del Clima, incluida también la posible retirada de subvenciones, tanto directas como indirectas, a los combustibles fósiles antes del 31 de diciembre del 2025, así como la situación actual en los diferentes países de la Unión Europea. Seguidamente pasaremos la palabra a los periodistas presentes para que hagan sus preguntas y ya sin más, señora Guteland, tiene la palabra.
Thank you very much, and it is a pleasure to speak to you here today. I think the topic of this afternoon is one of the biggest questions and the biggest issues for Europe and for the EU in a very long time. It is, I would say that the Green Deal is a big game change for Europe, and the climate law is the cornerstone of the Green Deal. And it's indeed historic that the European Union goes from being a coal and steel union to set the goal to reach climate neutrality at least 2050. We have behind us the European Parliament, where I sit, and in this house we decided in October how the climate law should look if the representatives of the people would decide. And according to that report, we should, as mentioned in the introduction, have 60% greenhouse gas reduction in 2030 compared to 1990. That is a big step and a very ambitious target. And if you compare it to the target of 40% that we have today, but also if you look at the Commission's net target of 50%. In the Parliament, we also got a decision that we would like the climate neutrality to 2050 to be binding target for every member state. It is very important that everyone contributes. It's about fairness. It's about making sure that every piece does its part to make sure that the whole of EU is ambitious enough and that we respect the climate neutrality to 2050. But this is also about making sure that everyone will be in the same phase here. And that would actually help those member states who are lacking behind at this moment. It is in my belief that it will be easier to help each other to make sure that we have systems with support for countries who have bigger travel to reach climate neutrality if everyone is doing it at the same time. In the report from the European Parliament, we also decided that we would like to see a greenhouse gas budget. This is to make sure that we also honor the Paris Agreement and that we can count on how much emissions, greenhouse gas emissions, that is possible to emit if we should respect the Paris Agreement and also reach climate neutrality in 2050. So this is a mathematic model that is really needed to make sure that everything fits into this puzzle. Last but not least, I would like to mention from the European Parliament's report that we also decided that we would like to see a European Council on climate change. And this council should work with evaluation of the climate legislation and make sure also to take into account the Paris Agreement. If we look at some of our member states, they already have panels or councils working for their member state in that way. But to be clear, on the EU level, we have a very strong mandate and competence to work on climate policy. And it's very natural that we also make sure that we have a good evaluation on the level that is so potent regarding to climate policy. But this battle over where we should be and how the climate law should look is not over yet, even though it was a big step to have a very good proposal and a good report from the European Parliament. We are going now into trilogue. And just the other day, we got the information that the Council is ready for negotiation, and we have now started among the three institutions to work and make sure that we have dates for the fall during the German presidency. And we will, of course, focus on ambition from the Parliament side, and I will represent the Parliament together with the negotiation team. But we will also need to make sure that we have social just climate law. So that will also be very important from the mandate that we got here. And I would like to also mention that time is important. We don't want a very big delay of the climate law. That's why we worked so hard in the European Parliament to make sure that we were on time in the European Parliament. We want to have a climate law that can also be an umbrella and the steer. The climate package that will be delivered next summer by the Commission. If we don't have a climate law that is concluded early next year, I believe it will be negative for the climate package that the Commission will launch in the summer, because how can one decide over the sectorial legislation if you don't know the whole umbrella and what every sector could emit according to the climate law? And then I would also like to mention that next year we have also the COP in Glasgow. And of course, this climate meeting will be very important. And I think it would set a very good standard for the world, that the EU is on track and that we show that we are ambitious in time and that we still deliver for the climate. This is what I wanted to say, and now I'm open for questions. Thank you.
Muchas gracias, señora Guteland. De cara al turno de preguntas, pueden pedir la palabra para intervenir a través de la aplicación, a través del chat. Pueden escribir su nombre, pueden pedir la palabra con la mano, alzando la mano. Y una primera pregunta que le querría trasladar es: algunos colectivos se oponen a esta ley porque consideran que no es suficientemente ambiciosa y otros, en el polo opuesto, por su impacto económico. ¿Cómo se logra ese equilibrio y cuál sería el mensaje para ambos posicionamientos?
First of all, I believe that we don't have the luxury to talk about a balance between institutions that is not maybe ambitious enough. Normally, you follow the EU institutions and the trilogues and would probably say that the balance would normally be somewhere between the Council and the Parliament, and there is where normally we find the Commission, and there is where the ambition will be. But I don't think we have the luxury to think like that it would be this easy model that then everyone can be happy if we land there. Because let's face it, if we look at what science is telling and also what the citizens demand from the politicians and from the EU, I believe it is clear that we need to do more. And I could never say that the other institutions have a fair balance here. I think the ambition is too low. That being said, I also think it's important that we come to conclusions, so we need to be able to compromise. But of course, I would like to push and set already from start show that there is pressure towards the Council and the Commission to see what the representatives of the citizens said regarding the target to 2030 I'm talking about now.
En cuanto a la financiación, teniendo en cuenta las grandes diferencias que hay entre los socios de la Unión Europea, también entre las diferentes regiones, ¿cómo se puede conseguir esa transición justa?
I believe we need to work in every political level in society. This is a work that cannot be done by one political level. It's about a shared responsibility. For me, and since my work here in the European Parliament, I've been more and more convinced that we need to have always the combination of ambition and just transition, because if we don't make sure that every political level have certain measures to shift the opportunities and make sure that also those who will need to change job, and now also in a difficult time with Corona, get support to do so, then we will have big resistance towards these measures that are so necessary for the climate. So this is about making sure that the society is built more fair. And yes, on the EU level, it's about the Just Transition Fund. It's one good example. And the Parliament wanted more money into that fund, you know that. But it's also about the member states and their tax systems and their way of making sure that the income in the society is more equal, and it's about making sure that you have education that can help and that you have support also for the employers who might lose jobs to get security during that time. So it's a combination of measures, and I like to picture it as a bridge where you go from the old society to the new society. You should not have to swim in a very cold water in between.
Recuerdo a los participantes que si quieren pueden presentar las preguntas, ya sea de manera oral o por escrito. Veo que nos acaba de llegar una pregunta de Europa Press. Pedro Armengou pregunta, ¿cree que la ley hará menos competitiva a la Unión Europea en frente a potencias que no pretenden respetar los acuerdos de París, como China o Estados Unidos, al menos durante el mandato de Trump?
No, that is a question I could be very clear, give a very clear answer to. No, I believe the opposite. I believe that business as usual is bad business. We will go into this corner for our business, for our different sectors, if we say that we can continue with this fossil fuel economy as we are doing right now. That is actually not to take responsible action. Also, if you would like to help our economy to be stronger again. It is true that there are some sectors that will need to transist more and that will have a more difficult time, and those who are more dependent on fossil fuels. And we have regions in Europe who will suffer during a period from that. On the other hand, all the impact assessment so far has shown that, from the Commission, all the impact assessment so far have shown that with higher target, we actually get better result for the economy and also for the jobs. So that has been the trend. And if you look at the whole picture, it will be a win-win situation for climate and also for the jobs. And of course, we should use that economic opportunity to also make sure that we make it more just and make sure that we have the just transition that we spoke about earlier on, so that we also help those regions and sectors who are not the winners in the first phase. But I'm convinced that also those will have a better situation in a medium-term period if they also transist. I believe that the US is doing itself a big damage by the Trump administration. I really hope that Biden will change that, and I think so by his message.
La adopción del mandato el pasado 8 de octubre fue aprobado por 392 votos a favor, 161 en contra y 142 abstenciones. Eso quiere decir que no recibió el voto favorable del 43% del Pleno, que es un número bastante elevado. No quiere decir que fuese en contra, pero ese 43% de diputados no lo apoyó. Entonces, si nos podía explicar igual qué dificultades encontró para aprobar el mandato, si eran más dificultades ideológicas o territoriales, igual por esto que comentaba de regiones, países que igual dependen más de los combustibles fósiles.
I would say it's always probably a combination of both. We can see support for the climate law and the report from the Parliament from different groups. And I must say that many were surprised that we got such an ambitious report, and not also a bit stronger support than anyone would have thought a couple of weeks before, and definitely not during the spring, when many people talked about that the EU might need to step down from ambition and not go ahead. So my intention is that there is a strong will to do more, and this is the message from the representatives, from the citizens. But yes, it's a report with many elements, and some is give more appetite for some member states, and others might give less appetite for others. So there is a combination, of course, of sectors that feel that this is going too fast, and also member states that might say we don't want this to be binding, or add other elements that gave some resistance. But still, it is a more progressive result than even I expected.
Una pregunta de Albert Hortas. Comenta, ¿nos podría valorar en qué situación se encuentra España en relación con el resto de los países de la Unión Europea respecto a los nuevos objetivos del 60% para el 2030?
I would say that the situation for Spain, as many countries in this moment, is that we are living under a very, very difficult time with Corona, and also for the economy, a very tough situation. And still, there is a very impressive also support for more ambition and willingness to do more for climate. Spain has been very many members have been very ambitious and wanted to show that for Europe, for Spain, in the long run, it's really important that we do this, and we do it responsibility and also with the just transition that we spoke about. And for me, what I felt also was Spain, by delivering and making sure to save the last COP and have it in Madrid, we're also showing a very great willingness to take a global responsibility for climate. But I know, just as everyone, that this is a very difficult time for everyone, and some countries have had even tougher situation with COVID-19 and still suffers from it in this second wave. And therefore, we need also to focus, of course, on how to restart the economy and make sure that Europe is doing a lot to help out.
La propuesta de la Comisión fue lanzada en marzo, el Parlamento aprobó su mandato ahora en octubre y antes comentaba que esperaba que se llegase a un acuerdo, se aprobase un acuerdo para, la Comisión aprobase su acuerdo para el próximo verano. En el contexto actual de COVID, ¿cree que esto es viable? ¿Es realmente posible llegar a alcanzar el acuerdo tan rápidamente?
I think we need to make sure that we have a timeline that works in front of both next summer with all the sectorial legislation, but also the next COP that will take place in Glasgow in the end of next year. I cannot put more, how can I describe it? I want to put as much emphasis on that message as possible to the other institutions, especially to the Council, that we cannot delay this. That will also be very negative for the result of the climate law, because all the sectorial legislation, if it takes place without taking into account a more ambitious target and all the different tools that we have in the climate law, then I don't think that the sectorial legislation will be as strong as necessary. And if you look at the upcoming 30 years towards 2050, when we will reach the climate neutrality, I believe that the first 10 years now is very crucial. And there are several reasons for that, and I will not take all of them for you, because then we should have a seminar. But I would like to mention first that the years in front of 2030 are the years when we have the lowest hanging fruits regarding cutting emissions. It will be more and more difficult. We will have more and more difficulties in the sectors. So if we don't do that now, the things that we can do with less difficulty, then we will emit unnecessarily much, also the years when we really need to focus even more to get the even more difficult emissions. It is also a very negative signal to the sectors that we could go on beyond 2030 without doing a lot more. When we know from science and the reports, the IPCC reports, that we will definitely not respect the Paris Agreement if we do so. Even if we reach the climate neutrality in 2050, we can go way beyond the Paris Agreement. And this is not a good signal to the world. So yes, we need to go faster. And if we should go faster to 2030, then it's necessary that we start on this mandate. We cannot wait and say, let's do it in the end of this legislature when we already revised the sectorial legislation. Then it's too late, and we cannot wait for the next commission. So for me, it's very logical that we need to do this before the sectorial legislation that will be passed on, launched next summer. So yes, it's in a hurry. So I'm telling that to the Council. They now came up and said they are ready to negotiate. And now it's about finding time and room and make sure that we have enough meetings to do the job.
Le traslado una nueva pregunta que va justo en esa línea de Pedro Armengou de Europa Press, que pregunta: ¿cree que el impacto negativo de la pandemia en la economía europea hará que algunos partidarios de la ley retiren su apoyo por considerarla poco oportuna?
Excuse me, I think I missed the first part of the question. Could we take it once again?
La repito. Pregunta si cree que el impacto negativo de la pandemia en la economía europea hará que algunos partidarios de la ley retiren su apoyo por considerarla poco oportuna.
Yes, I recognize this argumentation, and this was also very much put forward during the spring, this kind of argumentation. It is a natural question to ask, but I believe that the answer the result was another when the Parliament voted. We even got a more ambitious result than expected before this COVID-19 crisis. So I believe we can do it again, and we can do it with the member state, and we need to put up pressure. And for those who think that we could go on without doing it and just say that it's not the time, we have the pandemic situation, we are in a very difficult situation, to those I would like to put with emphasis once again that this is not the answer. We know now for sure, this generation, all of us living on this earth now, know what's happened when we have a global crisis. We know how difficult it is. We never want to experience it again. And with the climate crisis that we have ahead of us, if we don't act responsibility, this will be even worse. We are just in one crisis that will go on, and we will see many different aspects that will change life as we normally seen it until now. And I don't want that to happen. I really, really don't want that to happen. I want us to be able to take political decision in a more calm way and make sure that we do it not in panic. And then I could, of course, quote Greta Thunberg: when you see your house is on fire, you would like to save it immediately. You don't wait. And we need to have that focus even during this difficult time. And this is exactly because we know now how to live in crisis. We don't want to experience that again in that way. We cannot prevent Earth from being more, totally from the global heating that we see today, but we can stop it from getting worse, and we can also make sure that we work, of course, with different ways of capturing the emission that already has been there. And we need to do both.
Le traslado una nueva pregunta de Albert Tortas. ¿La aceptación o no por parte de la Unión Europea de los proyectos de transición ecológica para los fondos europeos pueden tener consecuencia en el cumplimiento o no de los nuevos objetivos?
You mean like a democratic consequence? Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think there are two challenges here, and they are unfortunately not in the same direction, but they are different directions. One is that if we have climate policy without just transition, then we can have a difficult situation in some member states with some groups, economic groups, that feel left behind. And we already seen what's happening in that situation. And that could be a ground for populism. It could be a ground for denying the global heating, denying science, and also more skepticism towards politicians. So we have that. But we also have a risk on the complete opposite side, that we have a big majority of the society who sees the necessity of transition and who feel that the politicians deny what science is saying, and rightly so, and feel that the politician doesn't take the responsible actions that they expect from politicians, and certainly expect from EU, who is the very strong climate level in politics, both because we can do things in reality back home in our member states, but also because we are a global actor. So for EU, it would also be a very democratic risk not to act, because people will say, this is the big thing of our time and you're not doing enough. Why should we support the EU in this situation? And me, who believe in EU, who believe in working together, who knows that these global changes and all these global challenges need us to work together. For me, it's fundamental that we are doing it now and that we are doing it with ambition. But to answer to that first risk that I spoke about, all these people who also feel left behind, we need to do it with respect of just transition. And we need to make sure that we work for a society that is more equal at the same time. Thank you.
Para los participantes que se están añadiendo últimamente, querría animarles a hacer las preguntas. También pueden hacerlas por escrito o pueden pedir la palabra e intervenir si lo desean. Una pregunta que también querría trasladarle es sobre el rol de las ciudades. Porque cuando hablamos de Europa, principalmente estamos hablando de estados, pero hemos visto iniciativas como el Pacto de las Alcaldías por el Clima y la Energía, y hay varias ciudades españolas que lo han firmado: Barcelona, Madrid, Málaga, Vitoria, entre otras. También en Suecia, Estocolmo, Gotemburgo, etc. La ciudad de Barcelona, de hecho, ha trabajado con la ciudadanía para crear un plan climático denominado Plan del Verde y de la Biodiversidad de Barcelona, que incluye entre sus prioridades reducir las emisiones de gases de efecto invernadero y crear espacios más verdes. Un poco sobre la construcción democrática que comentaba antes, querría si podía valorar un poco el apoyo que debería tener por parte de la Unión Europea estas iniciativas de ciudades, estas iniciativas, y valorar un poco la gestión que se puede hacer a nivel municipal y fuera también de los estados.
First of all, it is absolutely correct that the cities play a crucial role in the climate policy, and also to make sure that we are doing the necessary transition. 70% approximately of the emission is taking part in the cities. And I also believe that there are many of the most important tools that can be done in the cities to make sure that we change this global heating. And it's both about making sure that we have a smarter way of heating our buildings, more effective, better for systems, for climate, but it's also about, of course, transport and making sure that we can move without contributing to the global heating. So there are many of the most important tools that is also in the cities, and thereby the biggest opportunities to create that new society that is modern and better for both health and climate. And this is also something I would like to raise there, that for the health, it's really important. We know that almost half of the measures, climate tools, is also improving health in the cities because of the pollution. So there is a connection there, even if there are many polluters that is not the greenhouse gas polluters. We know that when we shift, we can also improve the air quality a lot. That being said, I think EU can work in several ways here. Of course, there needs to be a ongoing dialogue with the cities on how the legislations can help the cities, so that the things that is necessary in the big cities around in Europe is also improved by the legislation that is taken on the EU level. But it's also about using the cities and the mayors and their experience and all the projects that are being done as good examples, and having more of those exchange programs around. You mentioned that that is already going on, but I believe we could do it in cooperation with the European Parliament even more often than today, and see how we can improve and support what is done in the cities.
Muy bien, ahora mismo no tenemos ninguna pregunta más. No sé si alguna participante querría tomar la palabra, querría hacer alguna pregunta en directo. Y si no es el caso, lo dejaríamos aquí. Le agradecemos mucho, señora Guteland, su tiempo y mucha suerte para la aprobación de esta ley tan importante de la que depende el futuro de todos nosotros.
Thank you so much. It was really nice to talk to you.
Hasta pronto. Chao.
Bye.